Welcome to episode 60 of the Left Behind Game Club. This week, we play Night in the Woods. If you like this episode or any other episode of the Left Behind Game Club, consider a 5-star review on your platform of choice. It helps a lot. So Selmers in Night of the Woods inspired me to explore my creative side. So here's a poem. Your desktop has a shark. May is full of snark. Get sick eating pizza. Problems eating pizza. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're listening to the Left Behind Game Club. Welcome to the Left Behind Game Club, our never-ending attempt to make sure that no game is left behind. I'm your host, Jacob McCourt, and today I have 3 friends with me. The first friend, you know him, you love him. His name is Michael Ruffolo.
I'm excited to talk about a really great game.
Let's talk about a really great game with our second friend. His name, returning for the 3rd time on the podcast, Travis Colenutt.
Oh, hi.
Travis, you'll hear him previously on 2 other shows.
Yes.
What shows are those again?
Luigi's Mansion,
Zombie
U, where
U.
you destroyed me,
And Journey.
and Journey. That was
Yes.
good.
So 4th show, actually. My mistake. Coming back for her 2nd show is Jessica Fantauzzo. She was on our Soma show previously. Hello, Jessica.
Hello.
Don't be too excited now, Jess.
I wish I was a frequent friend. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, boy. You'll
You
be
will
a
be
freak
in time.
in time. Today we're talking about Night in the Woods, a game developed by Infinite Fall, published by Finji. It was a Kickstarter. Where do we start? Probably with a spoiler warning, right?
Yes, I don't think you can talk about this game without spoiling it, or I don't think we can do justice to this discussion without spoiling it. So I would say that, you know, if you have any interest in playing this game, which I would wholeheartedly recommend this game to pretty much anyone, that you not listen to this podcast until you play it.
That is a fair warning. So, Michael, you played it. What platform did you play it on?
I played it on my Xbox One.
Xbox One. Travis,
Oh, my wonderful
recommendation and how you played it.
Yes. Great game. Loved it. So much fun. I played on my Switch. I loved it.
Jessica, where did you play it and do you recommend it?
I played it on PC, and I would recommend it.
And I played it on Switch as well, and I would also recommend it.
Whoa, 4 thumbs up.
4 thumbs
Wow.
up.
4 thumbs up. We have thumbs. What is Night in the Woods?
That's a big question.
That is a big question. Why don't we start with what is it from a gameplay perspective?
Okay. So I'll take a stab at it.
Okay. Stab away. Just make sure that when you stab,
Right.
you stab the wrist.
Which is a great allusion to a mini game that happens later in A Night in the Woods.
So there are mini games in Night in the Woods.
Yes. So A Night in the Woods is an adventure game where you play as a zoomorphic animal, May Borowski, who's a humanoid cat, and you go back to your hometown, Possum Springs, in an attempt to regain some normalcy in your life, and you reconnect with your friends, and you do a little bit of shoplifting, and you do a little bit of knife fighting, and you break some, you hit some things with bats, and at the end, you defeat an evil cult. Just a casual day back in your small town.
Just a casual day in the Rust Belt of the United States, Possum Springs. Is there anything we left out there?
I don't think so.
Great, I guess we're done here.
Great video game. What does the game look like?
I guess it's kind of like it's an interesting like art style. It's kind of like it's really flat. I don't know how to describe it. Like everything looks like it's just like
Looks like papercraft a bit.
Yeah, it kind of like looks like really high end Flash like animation. You know what I mean? Like really really nice Flash animations, right? Like I don't know why that's the way it looks to me, but yeah, I think that's kind of the way it looks. It's cute. It's nice. It's
like Newgrounds 2030.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to get that URL immediately after this podcast.
I think that's really cool. I like the way you described that. I think it's also very bright
Yes.
in a lot of cases. And I think that aesthetic does wonders for the story that they try and tell.
So we've talked about kind of what the setup is. We've talked about the gameplay. You know, it's a combination story game, mini games, and then a really weird story. What about the characters? Because I think the Fab Four, as I call them, are incredibly memorable. Jess?
Yeah, so May returns home to her group of friends, and you have Gregg, who is this like energetic, arm-waving... I think the game kind of hints at the fact that he might have like some sort of personality disorder. He is her friend who works at the Snack Falcon. And then you have Angus, who is this smart... I don't know. How would you describe Angus? He's Gregg's boyfriend,
He's
and they live
smarter
together.
than the average bear.
He is. He is smarter than the average bear. That is spot on. And then you have B, who at first I thought was a dinosaur, but is actually a alligator. And
I don't know why I'm laughing at you. Like, none of these animals' characters make sense.
she looks like a dinosaur, but she is the like witty, like a little bit like a little sarcastic eyeliner, kind of like goth girl that you knew in high school.
And she does not hesitate to let you know that she was class valedictorian.
Mm-hmm. She had black nail polish, and she listens to a goth band.
Yes, and she's part of the Young New Socialists, very politically involved. She's an interesting character.
She drinks moonshine outside the bowling alley on Saturday nights.
Yes.
Is it just me, or am I the only one who imagined voices for each of these characters? Sounds like a very Jacob thing to do here.
Yeah,
but
probably.
Yes.
I don't think I had voices for them, but I definitely read their text in certain ways. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think I had, I can imagine what those characters would sound like. Like, I think that's because of the writing. The writing was really, really, really good.
Fantastic.
And so every character had distinctive voices, even like minor characters that you just would meet in the street.
Selmers.
Yeah, Selmers was
my
great,
favorite
right?
secondary character
Yeah.
in the whole game.
So like there's just a lot of different voices, even though it's just text on a screen, so it's done really well. So.
But there's so many other characters as well past the main friend group that you interact with, so it's like the entire town feels so full and so full of life at the same time.
Absolutely. One of the things that kind of screwed with my head was at first I was like, this is really stupid that these animals are better realized humans than a lot of humans in video games. And then the other thing that screwed with my head was like, these zoomorphic animal people are walking around, but there are also animals running around that are wildlife. And I had a mild existential crisis. And then I realized, like, but I'm just like a more advanced animal, and there are other animals walking around. And then the real existential crisis of the game hits, and there are a lot of really great characters. And don't try and think too much about the zoomorphic animals interacting with the greater world and what they eat and how that all works.
Yeah, that really bothered me that there was like a domestic cat walking around,
Yes.
and then May's just like walking down the street in clothes, and I'm like, yep, this is a thing. I'm just gonna go with it. Yeah.
Also raccoons, and
Yes.
they were in the garbage cans, and
Yes.
I just... Besides that and her walking on power lines, it was probably the two things that I was just like, I don't understand. She gets electrocuted by car batteries, but not by power lines that she's walking on like a feline.
Well, yeah.
Did it bother you that her dad calls her kitten?
I thought that was.
Oh, that's really strange,
I thought
too.
that was hilarious. I loved it.
I don't think I really thought about that.
Yeah, but
Now I'm bothered.
you talked about the characters in the game, but even like on the periphery, so Garbo and Malloy, which were like two of my other favorite characters.
Really? I did not like those.
The TV show host, but
I
you're
didn't
meant
like
not
them.
to like them, right? Because it's
Are
like
you?
it's
I like that.
they're spinning on like late night. Like I could see Fallon like doing that.
You don't like
shtick.
Fallon? What do you have against Fallon?
I have nothing against Fallon. It's just Fallon like speaks to the lowest common denominator in
wow.
like
Jacob throwing shade.
I'm not throwing shade.
Guess
but,
who's never working for Fallon?
Oh boy, I'm gonna cut all of this, but no, they have a shtick and like it's
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
That's
You could
fair.
tell exactly what late night shtick
Yes.
they're going for.
I also really liked that they had like a voice. It was like and like no one else spoke
No one else
in this
did.
thing, so it's
Yeah.
just like the TV noise that like you wouldn't really hear.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
like,
Charlie Brown
Yeah, pretty
parent
much.
voices.
Yeah.
Well, even when you were scrolling through text, there was a very slight, like you had to almost
Yes.
listen for it, but it was like that teacher voice. That,
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
I totally know what you're talking about. I'm just wondering if anyone else also heard this. Whenever Bea or Bea,
I think it's B.
B,
like Beatrice.
yeah,
Yeah.
B.
I just
Yeah.
called it B.
Okay.
Same.
Whenever B spoke, I imagined she sounded just like Daria. Does that fit?
You know what? That does fit.
The only time.
Is that a Canadian thing?
No.
Daria's not a Canadian
I don't
show?
think so. No.
Okay.
B is like Daria.
Yeah, B is like Daria,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah, just disillusioned with the world.
Well,
and-
yeah. Oh, yeah,
and
totally.
Fed
Oh,
up
yeah.
with its bullshit.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so I definitely felt that until you get later on in the game, and she has more of these like open, being honest about the disappointment
Yes.
in her life.
Yeah.
And that was a moment where I was like, oh, you're way more of a human than like this cartoon character who represents a lot of disaffected, young, smart female teens.
I have a quick question about that because did you guys the routes did they split?
They do.
Okay, because I went like full B.
Same.
Did you?
Yeah, I went full B. So I didn't. I'll explain later, but like I didn't end up hanging out with Gregg like ever. So when you guys are talking about stabbing, I'm like, I didn't stab anyone.
No, I almost went full B as well.
I almost went full B as well.
Wow. No,
I know.
I went part Gregg because I'm just like, I'm Gregg.
Yeah, I figured you'd probably go full Gregg.
Yeah, Gregg was great.
Yeah.
We had a comment from Twitter actually, and I'm going to read it now because I think it's the most appropriate thing to do. Thomas Reiss, who's been on the show before, he had a question, and it's, how cool is Gregg?
Gregg is cool, okay?
Gregg is cool, okay? Yeah, I'm Gregg.
Oh my god, is that the voice you imagined for? Gregg.
That is the exact voice that Gregg would have.
Yeah.
And see, like, I also went full B, so there was no stabbing in my game.
Right, yeah. So I was like super thrown off by that.
Yeah.
So it was only when I realized that you could take different paths than the one that I took that I went on YouTube and I was like, show me examples of other things that happened in this game.
Right.
And there's like, so I'm sure you all experience the point where you go and either beat up a car with a baseball bat or break lighting
Yes.
from
Yeah,
with
the
Gregg.
only baseball bat stuff I did was randomly I got to hang out with Gregg and he would throw lights, like
Yes.
fluorescent lights at me. And I don't know how that
and
one...
then bottles right at your
yes,
head.
Exactly. And the thing is, I'm like, am I supposed to know how to do this? And so I was doing that and I didn't understand how, like, I managed to hang out with Gregg for that because I was convinced, okay, I'm going to choose the B route so that I'm not like... I get the B ending, and if I want to play again, I'll play with Gregg, and then I could hang out with Gregg and throw fluorescent lights. But I'd never beat up any cars except for that one dream sequence.
Gotcha.
And that was it.
So there's a sequence with Gregg where you find a car with a tree growing through it. And he says, we need to get the car battery out of this because I have a special surprise gift for Angus.
I actually
okay.
did this.
Okay.
Oh,
In my
okay.
game, yeah.
And so he's like, well, the best way to get to this car battery, because the hood is rusted over, is to just beat up the car until like we can get it free. So, you have a therapy session with the car,
Right.
considering that Dr. Hank is maybe not the best psychotherapist in
And
this small,
dentist,
yeah,
and doctor.
and orthopedic surgeon, all in this small town. So you have a therapy session with the car, you beat it up with a baseball bat, you drag the battery out after getting electrocuted.
Oh my God.
And you go back to Gregg and Angus's apartment, and you build a frog character.
No, so I actually did this in my game
Okay.
and built this robot. So you build
Yeah.
this like a killer robot is probably
Yeah.
a good word for it
You
because
build a
there's, like,
robot?
Yeah, you get to build a robot.
What?
And at the end of the game,
Yeah.
you get to leave it in the woods to scare all the children.
Oh,
Oh my
that did
God.
not happen to me, but I built a robot.
Yes.
I built the robot as well, but I didn't get to leave it behind.
Yeah. How did you do that?
So my robot was a rabbit because the whole thing is
Mine was a frog.
there's this big overtone of like what happens in like small towns,
Automation.
automation, the whole deal. I'm sure we'll talk about it later,
Over
but
my
economic
dad.
times are tough on small towns, and so they had like a locally owned grocery store, and this locally owned grocery store had a mascot. And much like a Chuck E. Cheese, this mascot was like an animatronic mascot. So you actually break into this grocery store with some of the local like hooligans, and you have the option. You said, "Hey, we'll perform a crime for you later, but we want this robot head." So you get to choose one of 3 robot heads.
Ah, that's interesting. I didn't get to do that, or I didn't do that crime of breaking in. I just helped Gregg build it for Angus as a gift.
Yes, and see, I broke in and got to choose my head. So I choose the bunny head, and I don't think you'd want to see my robot because it had one leg that was a bottle, one arm that was a butcher knife.
Oh my God.
You turned Night in the Woods into Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, I actually did. And so the whole right side was like killer and the whole left side was normal. And at the end of the game, you leave it in the woods to like, because it's getting smelly in the apartment. They're like, this is a really smelly robot. We should get rid of it. And in the forest, you leave it on a log. And imagine this thing is just like wobbling about.
Oh my God.
And just scaring children. It's great.
Lovely.
Yes. A Night in the Woods.
Well, it's better than other things that were in the forest.
With my
Yes.
killer robot Bun.
So, okay. So we've talked about the main cast. We've mostly talked about the main cast, right? I think everyone spent a lot of time with B,
Yeah.
or Beatrice Santello.
Yeah.
So it doesn't sound like we spent as much time with Gregg, the best friend. But he is, how would you describe him? An anarchist, with, it's hinted at that he has a bipolar disorder. Any other things you would say about?
Like a Nazi
he's gay.
era? He's gay. Doesn't he wear like a Nazi?
No,
era
it's not Nazi. It's
fascist-
World War One.
You're correct.
Oh my gosh.
And so he makes it very clear that that World War One Germans were not Nazis. He's an anarchist, if anything, and because there's a bullet in the helmet, it's a subversive symbol.
Oh my gosh.
It has an A letter on it.
Yeah, no, I didn't interact with Gregg very much. Well, the thing is, I had first hung out with B, and then the second... So I think the first split is you can either hang out with Gregg or you can go to the mall with B. And I ended up going to the mall with B because I was like, okay, I'm going to try to, fix this relationship because they were so sassy with each other to start. And I was like,
she was definitely not excited to see you when you showed up at
not
band
at all.
practice.
And but May was given the sass back too. She was like, "You're not playing the drums. You're pretty much just pressing a button on a computer, right?" Like there was a lot of sass back and forth. So I was like, "Okay, I'm going to go with that route." But then the next time around, when I could pick like where you wanted to go, B asked me, "What are you doing later?" And I didn't want to say no because what if that option never came back again? So I inadvertently ended the day by hanging out with B, and then I was like, "Well, I guess I've committed to this route now." And so I never really. Gregg seemed okay, but thinking about it now, it's like, okay, maybe there was some under the level, under the layers kind of issues that maybe we could have talked about. Where B's issues were yeah, you can kind of see she's got problems, right? So
I was a little upset that I ended up spending more time with B than I did Gregg.
Yeah,
because
I kind of felt the same way.
Gregg just seemed a whole lot more fun.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot more mini games with Gregg. I don't think there was nearly that many.
There's a mini game where they just start stabbing each other. They have a knife fight.
Yeah.
And see, I kind of pinpointed Gregg as the troublemaker. You could tell almost right off the bat that he was maybe he was May's best friend, but he was also a terrible influence. And he in your conversations, you'd be like, "Let's go do crimes," and I'd be like, "No, let's not do crimes." But did you also play the pierogi throwing game?
I did not, but I saw video of it.
What? There's
Tell
a
us about
pierogi?
it.
Why did I miss all of these?
I didn't play the game. So likewise, I spent the majority of my time with B. So I went to the mall and I went to the party, but I was reading after the fact when I realized that there were routes that you could play this pierogi throwing game.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so you go and get pierogies, and they're almost like the donuts, where they're very special donuts.
I don't remember these donuts
Imagine
either.
an old Flash game on Newgrounds, where there's this face, this little dinosaur face. I know she's an alligator, but dinosaur. No, this is Gregg. So it's Gregg's dumb face is just going back and forth on the screen, and you just have to time slingshot throws of your pierogies. And at one point, if you can actually hit the person's face or hit Gregg's face, and the whole time was Gregg's going, "You're getting more on my face than in my mouth."
I did not imagine Gregg to have this voice.
Is it just me?
I think
You didn't ask to hear any of my other impressions. Do you want to hear my Angus?
Nope, I'm
Yes.
good.
Okay.
Oh no,
Jess says yes.
Oh, hi, I'm Angus.
Actually, that's very much in line with what
my
I was
gosh.
expecting.
Let me tell you about my cooking.
Oh my
I
God.
like lasagna and brownies.
See, and I wanted to hang out with Angus, but once again, I accidentally did not because I was
Did you have the choice? I thought it was really between the two.
So there was the three. No, but I think later on, later in the story, you get the three choices of where you want to go, and I think I ended up going with B and Gregg. So I was I haven't hung out with Gregg in a while, so I was going to
Don't
hang
you
out
have
with
to
Gregg.
do all of them?
I didn't do
No.
anything with Angus.
Oh, I
Yeah.
did. I did one with all of them.
No, I did nothing with Angus. I was 50-50 Gregg.
Did you
and B.
not take the hike with Angus and his asthma?
Nope.
Wow.
Oh, I did.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Nope. I didn't.
I think right off the bat, the relationship with B was much more intriguing than what you could tell that you would get with Gregg or with Angus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Because like once you delve in, and it was so realistic and so relatable, and I think especially for me as a female, like those are the kinds of relationships that you tend to have around 2021, where you're growing apart from your friends, and maybe somebody moves away, and you get into these spats where like the friendship just kind of breaks apart. So like you could sort of tell where that interaction was going from right off the bat, and that's why I wanted to spend more time with B. I did hang out with Gregg once, which is the robot electrocution. There's to that point, there's so much electrocution in this game.
Yeah.
It's a good thing she's a cat. She needs those 9 lives.
Hey.
I think she had 3 by the end of the game.
Yeah, no joke.
You know what's funny though? I didn't like. I don't know if it was the game or it was just me, but like gender isn't something that I immediately like gravitated towards in these characters. I wasn't like, hey, I know like you're a male character, you're a female character. It took me a while to figure out.
I really liked that about this game. Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. Right. Like, so there would be times where I'm like, it's like I shouldn't just assume, but like legit, I liked that a lot, you know. So I think there was a mouse that was up on the roofs of something, and then I ended up hanging out with this mouse. Her name ended up being Lori. Didn't know that for the longest time, but we ended up going to the train tracks, and we ended up like laying in between train tracks. And this Lori really likes horror movies. Yeah, I ended up doing this whole hangout with this Lori mouse that was hanging out on the roof. Like, interesting.
So who were your favorite characters that you bumped into that are not part of the like core story?
I was gonna say the mom, but like we'll just
mom.
I love
Mommers?
the mom. Oh my
Yeah.
god, the mom is terrific.
Daytime mom.
I love the mom so much. I would go visit her at the church every day.
Me too.
Yeah, every day I went to the church. We ended up going to see she ended up playing hooky from work because we.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I think it like kind of.
Say goodbye to the house.
Yeah, so she was like, I know, right? So I went to her work, and she was like, "Hey, like I'm gonna, dip out right now. Like, how about we go for a walk?" So we went for a walk up a hill, and we chatted a bunch and stuff like that.
Wow.
It was really nice. And like when I had to fight her mom, like I did not like.
What do you mean fight?
Like
have a fight?
There was a full-on argument, and I was like,
yeah. Sorry.
No,
like
no,
an
no,
argument.
physically fight.
I was like, yo, you're rolling with mom. You're
Yeah,
dropping
that
elbows.
mini game where you
You're
stab
dropping
her.
elbows on mom's face.
No, like when you have that like yelling match about pretty much how May is kind of the cause of them having financial troubles.
Right.
Every choice I was like, I'm just gonna try to like disperse this. I don't want to make this worse than it is, but then boom, like it just every choice that I made was that fight was going to happen regardless. So I was really upset that I couldn't stop fighting with mom, and I was like, please just let this day be over.
Yes. So much relating to what Jess said that this game and the characters are very relatable. Mm-hmm. And I think I feel it, or I think we might feel a little bit more than the average person because, we're from a manufacturing area that is no longer very manufacturing oriented, part of the Rust Belt. And, you have a changing identity being from a town or a city that's in that area. But there was so much relatability in having those conversations that like they give you a chat dialogue and you get to choose which one, but both are cringy. And with time, because we're a little bit older than the characters in the game, like neither of these are good, but I can relate because when I was younger, I would say stupid stuff like this. Like I would be the guy who would be oblivious to my privilege that like I lived on the better side of town or in the nicer house in the neighborhood. Like in the game in Possum Springs, all the nicest houses in the nicest neighborhoods are to the far right of town. And as you move left and get closer and closer to where the bus depot was, it gets poorer and poorer with more broken down buildings. And I was that guy who was like oblivious and just saying to people like B that like, no, but you have a choice. Just choose. Like decide not to do this. And
you don't always have that choice.
Yeah. Like it's only with age and time that I think you get that perspective. And so there were a lot of moments in this game that I deeply related and identified with these characters.
There's this great video on YouTube it's from the channel What's So Great About That, and it's like a 6-minute video, and one of the points that was brought up in the video is that traditionally video games will go left to right. But like speaking on your point about the economics and going from quote unquote the good part of town to the bad part of town, you actually go left for a lot of this game. So like it almost breaks conventions of gaming in that way too.
So much of the game you're not allowed to go right when you leave your house.
Yeah.
Because there's construction. And then the moment they do allow you to go right, it's, you can't really go anywhere.
Yeah, there really. I think was there anything that came from that? Like
you get to sit on the bridge.
Yeah, that was about it.
You get to see the edge of town. You get to see, I think, one of the funnier signs in the game, which is you're not lost, you're here.
Yes.
at the entrance to Possum Springs. But yeah, there's not much out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And not much, like we've talked about we've talked around choice. There's the illusion of choice in this game. And I think a lot of that comes through because the writing, this reminded me a lot of like a YA novel, but like, and I think Scott Benson said this in the GDC talk that was done that Mike, you sent to us to kind of have a look at, but it almost seems like it was written by like a 30 or 35-year-old, like a YA novel, but it doesn't talk down to the audience in any way. They're like, this is my experience as a 20-year-old, but I'm actually 30 and 35 and I've moved past this, but I have enough insight to give you insight into what I was going through when I was 20.
Right.
But the illusion of choice is something that you think you have, but you actually have not a lot of choice in this game.
Yeah, thematically, it was very similar to some of the narratives that you would see in like a young adult novel or like even like The Catcher in the Rye, right? Like there are some parallels and similarities to that kind of category of literature. But you're right. I think the way that they approached the dialogue and the decision making and the dynamics between relationships, like it wasn't aged down at all. Like it didn't feel like it was directed towards that age group in the slightest.
So much of it is, I think it would be wrong to call it a coming of age game or a coming of age story. But it is so much of a moment in time where someone is growing up. I think there's a German term for this type of story. Damn, give me a second.
Can I give you a quote from Errant Signal? Yes. So Errant Signal, which is another YouTube channel, this was great, and they called this game, or the channel called this game, "Dicking Around with Friends Until You Stumbled Into Something Emotional, the Video Game." And I think that's just a very appropriate way to describe it.
I would disagree that this isn't a coming of age story, because I feel like initially when you start to learn who May is and how she's acting and how she's running away from all of her responsibilities, I found her almost unlikable.
Yeah, I kind of agree. There's moments where I did not like her at all.
And then as the story progresses and when you kind of uncover more and you hear, B tell her like it is so many times and she starts to kind of clue into what's going on, at the end, like you can tell that there's definitely some character development. And she's gone through this like emotional journey, so to speak, and like she becomes like a much more well-rounded character.
I mean, I think you as the player gains more perspective after having seen the things that go through May's life, but I don't know if May the character is that much different at the end. Like, I mean, she deals with deep existential questions, but I don't know if she's that changed at the end. Like at the end of the game, we're still going to band practice and we're pretending as if it never happened.
Yeah, that's true.
But there is the conversation that's at least starting to happen around it, and like the realization of, regardless of perspective, like B has a lot going on and May sort of discounts that at first, and then eventually her and maybe it's because of the time that we spent with B. So I don't know if some of the dialogue was a little bit different, but they have a conversation at one point in time where they start talking about, May sees it as super unfair to what B is dealing with in her life, and she starts to become more of a champion for B. Whereas I feel like at the very beginning of the game, through some of the earlier conversations, she's so selfish.
Right. Yeah. I kind of actually totally agree, because there's...
You kind of actually...
I kind of actually totally agree. I think just because I came to that realization, because, yeah, Jess is right. There is a little bit of growth there. I don't know. I'm kind of right between you two, because I see the growth and I see that May... I think because May has an understanding, right? And she kind of understands where B's coming from better. But there was a lot of repeat conversations where like B would say something and then May was not getting it. And like I think maybe it's because I hung out with B so much. But I think almost at the same time, I feel like I wanted more out of the ending, like in terms of like,
Interesting.
you know, like I wanted more out of like, I want to know that there's going to be growth, and maybe there just wasn't like a clear, maybe it wasn't clear cut enough for me, but that's
Right.
just because I'm entitled and I want more. But like, I wanted more of a clear cut like ending, or maybe at least clear cut like, hey, this is where we're going to progress, right? And like, I guess because the story just kind of like it ends, and then they're just going to do band practice, and I'm kind of like, okay, what did we learn from this? And I'm sure there's lots that we could learn from this when you think about the whole story as a whole, but May herself, I'm like, okay, where does she go from here? And
Like, I can see that argument, and I think part of it is that A Night in the Woods is a game that you think about a lot when you finish playing it, and I think you probably gain a greater appreciation and insight the further away it's been from when you've played it. I just finished this game last night, so I have not had that much time to think about it. But I still kind of feel like there isn't that much growth from where May starts to where she ends, or where a lot of these characters start or end. Like, relationships develop and progress, but I'm not sure if because they move forward, there's necessary growth happening there. But I'm open to both, and I think you can make a compelling argument for both.
Isn't that life though? That like, I'm not just saying that to like move on to something else. Like, as people, do people really ever change?
Yes.
oh boy,
They do. This is a conversation we're going to have. I think fundamentally that people cannot really shift from where they are as people.
I love that we're having a question, or we're having a discussion about the nature of man and
I wish
our
people
existence.
could have seen Michael just like stood up as I was talking and was like, "We're gonna have a conversation."
You excite me, Jacob. Let's go. So I absolutely think people change and can change, and I think one of the fun things about this game is that they use like a Lovecraftian horror element to kind of spur this question about our existence and what is the nature of man, and all of these questions. But to your point about do people ever change, I absolutely believe people change. I think setting aside some like metaphysical stuff, I think people are really just an accumulation of habits, and habits are easy to be stuck in. But I absolutely believe that people can change habits, and if you change those habits, you are able to change. An example that I would give are people who have, substance abuse issues, right? People who have substance abuse issues, if they couldn't change, they would always have those substance abuse problems. But there are people who have those who are able to get past it by changing their habits.
like Selmers.
Like Selmers.
Oh, there you go.
right?
Oh,
Yeah.
Selmers.
It's almost like mental health, and all of these things are motifs and themes of the game.
Oh, maybe.
Like I would provide more examples of mental health. I think is another great example to go to. A lot of the most effective treatments for anxiety and depression is CBT therapy, which is about being mindful and thinking about the things that you're feeling and why you're feeling them, and making habitual changes to have a different reaction to that stimulus.
Now, are these changes or are they shifts? Because I think we're dancing around the same area.
What's the distinction?
So you said that someone can change their habits, for example.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that is a like full sale change. That is I'm at 0 right now, and maybe I move to 10% or I move to 20%. That is not I wake up tomorrow and I am a brand new person, or even if I work towards a goal that is, let's say I want to be Mr. Olympia, right? I want to work out real hard, be in bear mode for years, and just decide that I'm going to be an Olympic lifter, or flex all you want, Mike. But that's a gradual thing.
Sure.
And I could never be Mr. Olympia, right? My body just doesn't let me do that. And I
No,
know
that's your mind.
That's I genuinely, and Jess is actually laughing right now, but I genuinely think I could
Shaking my
not
head.
be. There's a lot of things that I could work for 10 years and be and do, but I don't think that's one of them.
There is only one way to eat an elephant, and that's one bite at a time. There is one way to climb Mount Everest, and that's one step at a time. Essentially, the argument that you're making, correct me if I'm wrong, is that people never climb Mount Everest. They just take one step at a time. And what I'm saying is all you need to do is focus on taking that one step. All you need to do is focus on making these small habitual changes, and they accumulate, they stack, they snowball into a big difference that, you know, if you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger from the first day he started working out to, you know, one of his peaks as, you know, the physique, right? You would say, I mean, there's a massive difference. Clearly, you say change would have occurred, but it's the same underlying person. There's just a difference in habit. There's a difference in, you know, routine. And I think those routines manifest not only physically in how someone looks, like if someone goes to the gym, but also mentally with not only how you think about yourself, but how you train yourself to be mindful of the thoughts that you have.
Yeah.
And I think this game does a really good job of making that a very clear. Like, there's that really, I find, relatable scene where May is looking in the mirror before she goes out.
Mention this. Yes, totally.
And you are your own worst critic. You see the things that bother you the most about yourself in detail that you would never see in someone else, that you would never think is a big deal.
Yeah, like I had a total moment of, oh my gosh, she's so relatable. You know, hashtag relatable. She was looking at herself in the mirror, and she is putting on the costume and blah, blah, blah. And one of the options was, I'm afraid that people don't like me. And I was like, oh, right in the gut. Like, I'm dead, because I'm like, oh no, that's what I feel. And like, that's, you know what I mean? So,
but you're the most likable human on earth,
okay,
Travis.
I'm just fishing for compliments at this point. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Just keep bringing them in. I'll take them all. But like, you know what I mean? So like, that's one of those things that, you have those anxieties. You have those things. You have to change the way you think about yourself, because obviously, hey, look, I am likable, but like,
legit though you are.
Okay, but like, you don't think those things. It's easy to not think those things. It's easy to not have to get in that habit of thinking, I'm not likable, I'm not likable, I'm not likable, no one wants to talk to me.
It says so much that if Travis can think that,
right,
that like, who is immune? No, and I'm not even blowing smoke. Like, Travis is, and hey, look, I've said this to Jacob when you were not here, Travis.
Oh, here we go.
You are just the nicest dude in the world.
Oh boy.
So, like, if Travis is experiencing that, like,
you just fell into my trap of giving me compliments. Thank you.
You used your trap card, and I fell right into it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's progress.
We talked. I made the joke when we started the podcast about May, and I said it's a May, because I think I really relate to this character, because I'm someone who, like May, like went and totally changed her life. So like went to college.
But I thought people can't change.
Let me get to my point.
Was
here.
it a shift?
Let me get to my point.
Did you just shift a
Did
great
you shift
distance?
your life?
Oh my gosh, guys. And I moved back in with my parents, like, you know, later in life. And, you know, there's a lot of questions that come back there. I came back to my hometown. I'm hanging out with the people that I used to hang out with when I was in high school. Like,
This is literally your
this
game.
is really relatable.
This is, I think, Travis.
Am I B? You said, no, just kidding.
Well, you actually
Who am
talked to
I?
me, and you're
Am I
like,
Gregg?
Jacob, this is your game. And what did you actually say about May? Didn't you say that May is you?
Oh yeah, May is you. Like full-fledged May is you. And so I'm just like, B must be, because I'm definitely not Gregg. So I'm definitely B, if that's the case.
Just don't play baseball with Jacob.
But I'm someone who, like, I can see that, like, even compared to, so this game takes place, let's say, over 3 months. Maybe it's 2 months. Maybe it's a little less.
Yeah.
But, like, I can see that in myself that there's a change that's happening. And I don't think that we're disagreeing. We're on polar opposite ends. It's just you're saying that you can have whatever you want as long as you know, bite this elephant every once a day, where I'm saying, like, someone can shift and
Like
the shift will happen.
It's the exact same
You
thing.
can bite this elephant once a day.
That's what you're saying. You can bite this elephant once a day. But I'm saying, like, there's a shift, but it might not be that far off your original axis.
I think that's one way to put that's how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. Just just bite this elephant once a day.
One bite, I'm full.
I don't think the elephant's going to like you very much.
Jacob, I think you need to start writing poetry.
Yes.
I think you need
Give me our
to.
own Selmers.
Yes. Start
Should
a poetry diary.
Should I give you actually one of my poems that I wrote for this game?
Oh my gosh, you
but
wrote
look,
a poem for this game?
Yes, you should. But I also feel bad because I got lost in your bite this elephant once a day and did not understand the end of your point there.
Which was I feel like May, and I feel like I'm making strides. Mental health, but it's not. It's tough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and it's not an overnight thing, and
which is kind of indicative.
It's something you always struggle with, right?
Yeah.
So if you let it slide, if you let it backslide, if you neglect your mental health, for example, let's say you're doing a master's program and you don't get enough
Just
sleep.
hypothetically.
Oh boy.
Hypothetically, welcome to Jacob's personal corner here.
I won't charge you for this hour, I promise.
I will.
I'll give you a nickel right here. But if you neglect it, it can turn on you.
Right.
Much like happened to May, where
Absolutely.
she neglected her mental health and look what happened.
Well, I mean, May also had Lovecraftian horror that was seeping from a mind very close to her hometown that was taking over her brain.
Yeah.
So, apples and oranges. But I do take your point. Absolutely. That it's that making change is not easy, and it's not always readily apparent, and it's definitely not always rewarding. But I think it's important to keep in mind that change can happen, and it does happen. You just don't see it every day. It's only when you have the luxury to look back and see where you were and where you are now that you can see how far you've come.
Mm-hmm. Can I give you my poem now?
Yes.
Okay.
Hit us. Do I need to snap?
Yeah, we need to snap. So this is my Selmers.
Oh, here we go.
May is a cat. You have to do the snapping and
Oh.
May is a cat. She ain't a rat. Mom is so cool. Dad such a fool. That's it. That's my poem.
Wow.
Did you just write that on the spot, or did you prepare that ahead of time?
I just wrote that on the spot. Was
Wow.
it good or was it bad?
It was good.
It's 6 out of 10, right?
I'm not going to lie, though. I really like Selmers' poetry.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Did you guys get to the point where you actually got to see it
In the
library?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Because you have to I don't know if you have to speak to her every day. I mean, I made sure I did. I kind of tried to do everything
Me
every day.
too.
Yeah. I didn't want to I didn't want to miss something every day.
Did you not have the feeling that it was impossible to see everything?
I think
Yes.
yeah, totally. 'Cause-
I feel like, especially after hearing all of it, I feel like I missed so much of the game.
Yeah. I totally realized. Did you guys unleash the rats?
yes, I
Okay.
totally
Nope.
did.
Okay.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So Mallard the Duck
Yes.
is May's favorite parade float.
Yes.
And as you're jumping on the
power lines. Yep.
you stumble across an old building with an open window.
Right.
After a dog starts barking at you, and you open the window
Yep.
and you go in and you find boxes full of flowers that are not actual fresh flowers. They're plastic flowers. Thank you, Travis. And then you find an exit door that doesn't actually exit anywhere.
Right. It's locked.
It's locked. And then you open it and you find this creepy duck parade.
Upside down duck parade thing. Yeah, so I think it's pretty much where they keep all of the decor and stuff for the city and everything.
Yeah.
And you can look inside the hole of this giant mallard's stomach. It's a float, right? And you look inside and there's this shriveled little tiny white rat. It's really gross looking, but it's your little rat babies. And then okay, when you go into the subway kind of area,
the
down
Venice
below?
of Possum
Yeah.
Springs.
So you can steal pretzels, right? So you can shoplift the pretzels. And you
Crimes.
Video games.
Yeah. You take the pretzels and you feed them to the rats, and if you do that enough days in a row, the rats slowly start breeding. So there's 2 rats, and then there's 4 rats, and then the rats are no longer there because they've spread into the building. And then by the end, the rats are all over that screen of the city. They're on the power lines, they're on the windowsills, they're everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's all these little side things. Did you guys get the tooth?
Yes, I got the tooth too.
Right?
Yeah.
What?
So
The tooth?
Yes.
the tooth.
So did you explore around your home at all?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
So did you find the bookshelf on the second floor of the house?
Yeah.
That your grandfather gave you all these old books from?
No.
Oh my gosh. Oh, you know what? It's because the game auto makes you go downstairs. If you jump, you can stay on the top floor. Yeah.
Well, I tried to go into the storeroom to find the safe that I couldn't access, but I didn't know about this bookshelf.
So the password to the safe is in the book.
Oh, weird. I didn't have that.
Yes. So if you
Oh, maybe I already knew it.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
didn't actually read
you
it.
Just
Okay,
didn't
that
piece
makes
it.
sense.
You
Yeah.
didn't piece it together.
I
but
didn't piece it together.
made
That
it.
was there. Yes, that makes
Yes.
sense.
What's in the safe?
A tooth.
A tooth.
And if you read
Yes.
the microfiche in the library,
In the library, yeah.
you end up finding there's all these other little stories about the town in the microfiche, and it really helps paint a picture of the world of Possum Springs. And you find out that there was a union group that would take the skull, and each member had a different tooth, and when they would meet for their meetings, they would put their tooth into the skull, and at the end of the meeting they would take their tooth and they would go, and it was kind of your entry ticket. And that is 100% what I thought the miners at the end of the game were. I thought they were the continuation of that.
They've got the same idea.
Yes.
I feel like there's a big segment that I missed at the house. I didn't unlock the crawl space.
Yeah, you had to talk to your dad every time, and then you eventually
I
moved the
did.
boxes. He eventually moves the boxes to the main floor, and then you can get into the crawl space.
It's like five or six times.
It's quite a bit. You have to watch TV with him.
I talked to mom and dad every morning and
yeah.
every night.
When May jumped on the counter, I was always just like, "Oh, it's Mom and May time."
Yeah.
But we skipped over the Selmers with my awesome poem.
Yeah, oh yeah.
We skipped
It
over
was.
his very politically charged.
She.
Thank you. Her very politically charged poem that was one of my favorite parts of the game, because this game like wears its politics on its sleeve, and like even at the end of the game, like we won't. Maybe I'll just allude to it now. There's like two groups of people, and one is like represented on the right side, and it's like the young adults who are maybe 20 who have more liberal views, and then like on the left hand side, all of the cultist miners who have more conservative views. And I was just like, dang, I like this. But the poem, do you want me to just read the whole thing, or give you kind of like some of the
go for
highlights
it.
of it? No reception here. I wave my black phone in the air like a flare, like a prayer, but no reception. I read on the internet, baby face boy billionaire, phone app sold, made more money in one day than my family
Preach.
over 100 generations. More than my whole world ever has. World where house buying jobs became rent paying jobs, became living with family jobs. Boy, billionaire. Money is access. Access to politicians waiting for us to die. Lead in our water. Alcohol and painkillers. Replace my job with an app. Replace my dreams of a house and a yard with a couch in the basement. The future is yours. Forced 24/7 entrepreneurs. I just want a paycheck and my own life. I'm on the couch, in the basement, they're in the house and the yard. Some night I will catch a bus out to the West Coast and burn their Silicon City to the ground.
Wow. So impressive.
Yeah, and you don't expect it because he just reads like
See?
She keeps reading poems that are just like
Right. It's like
they're
yeah,
one-liners or
yeah.
two-liners, and this poem just like
Yeah.
Yeah.
loved it.
Yeah. Really good. Really good. And then you find out more information about Selmers outside of her poetry. Like, that she was an addict, that she had, all
had
of
a
these
kid-
substance abuse. I
kid.
think she had a kid
She's
as well.
married, I think. Yeah.
And yeah, you find out so much about the characters in all these supplemental ways. Speaking of side characters, what do you guys think of Germ?
Okay. I didn't do any. Is there a thing with Germ?
Okay,
because I didn't do it.
Yeah, there's some stuff with Germ.
I didn't spend much time with Germ either, but he comes into like a very critical point at the end of the game.
Yes.
Like out of nowhere, he's basically the character that saves everyone.
Yeah.
Yep. There is some cut content in the game when you go to Germ's house. That alludes to the fact that Germ's family, they're actually the miners, which should explain
Why they have access in
yes.
the way. Oh, no.
Also would explain why you don't recognize any of the names or voices in a small town. And also there's cut content where you talk with Germ's grandmother, and she pretty much lays out everything that happens and will happen to May. And she even calls May a sturdy girl like May's grandfather.
Weird.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, no, that's crazy.
Yeah.
do we want to kind of move down the path of like the big twist in this game?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I think we should just lay out that this game for a long while is just day to day in a small town.
Yeah.
You know, you're walking through town, you're catching up with everyone, you're talking with the priest, you're talking with, what's our homeless friend's name?
Bruce.
Talking with Bruce. You're talking with the goth teenagers who talk in triplet rhyme.
Yes, I love that.
You talk with
random teenagers that were also a group that
you are now an adult to.
Yeah, she's like being a parent.
Hello,
like,
fellow teens.
Yeah, hello, teens.
You talk with everyone in town. And then, you know, you have these little side adventures. You go to the party and you stumble across your ex and you drink too much alcohol, which, right? And then you end up going to the college party with B.
Yes.
And
I didn't do that.
You didn't do that?
Wow,
Oh,
I
that's-
split Greg B.
Right. No, that one was great.
that one is,
Yeah.
I think, the highlight for me.
Yeah, I think that's like the peak of B's story is right there. Do you want me to just tell you what happens?
Yeah.
Okay. So you go to this party, and it's pretty much, it comes to find out that B has been going to these parties just to kind of have a semblance of normalcy. So like she goes, pretends she's a kid at this school and everything like that, because it's like an hour and a half away. So she's pretty much just acting as if she is, a normal kid who doesn't have to pay bills and take care of her father and run a business and do all these things, right? So May, not knowing any of this, puts her foot in her mouth and kind of embarrasses B in front of a couple of guys that she might have kind of like was flirting with a little bit. And then so B she runs away from this party, and you have to like jump across a bunch of rooftops and everything like that to get to her. And then they have like a good conversation at the river down in the city where they kind of talk about like, would we even be friends if we weren't kind of stuck together? Are we just friends by proximity is kind of what they say. So kind of is like the peak
Which also so relatable.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Like, who has not had that moment where you're like, are we friends that would survive
Stay
any
friends.
distance?
Right.
You know, that would survive all of this. Or, and then at what degree are all of the relationships in my life relationships of proximity?
Right. Just because it's easy.
Again, the relatability of all of us being from a small town where you hear trains in the distance.
Wow. Yup. But I think two of the creators, Scott and Bethany, like they're both from Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Oh,
And-
I thought this was an Australian game.
So
Also,
there's
Pennsylvania
the
is
connection.
perfect. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I was thinking when I was looking at Possum Springs.
Yeah, so the connection there is Secret Lab built the game's narrative engine, and that's the Australian connection. They're
Gotcha.
from Australia. Yeah.
Okay.
The game was ported by 22nd Century Toys as well on Switch,
Right.
but I digress.
Yeah. It looks like Pennsylvania to me. It looks like a small Rust Belt town. Somewhere that I could easily see, a bit outside Pittsburgh. In addition to, all of these little side stories that you have in the hangout with your friends, it kind of culminates with, again, what kind of feels like a normal day, where you stop by the Pickaxe B's store, and you help her with a pageant that she's agreed to help run to tell the story of the town. And at the end of it, you step outside and both B and Gregg go their own way, and you see a hooded figure kidnap what looks to be a girl on a cell phone right behind you. And I think that's really the reason why I notice the character. You see the glow of the cell phone, and you see the character get snatched, and you chase after them. And this is after you find a severed arm on the ground.
Yeah, which was totally random. And
Absolutely random.
and people were just like, oh, okay, there's an arm there.
Yeah,
Sure.
how are you not
Let's
freaking
poke
out?
her with a stick.
Right. Yeah, legit.
This is the most like,
Legitimately.
Stand By Me moment you could ever have in a video game.
But for real, how is it not the talk of the town? It's a small town. Do arms just
There's
show
just
up
an
on the
arm,
daily?
and no one cared.
How is this not the biggest news?
So like, we're going home now.
What
Like-
is her Aunt Cop's name?
Mall Cop.
Mall Cop. Is that actually
No,
the name?
It's
Aunt Molly.
Aunt Molly.
I called her Aunt Cat Cop. I actually had a theory because I feel like once that happens and Aunt cop cat shows up out of nowhere, she very much is the one to like brush it under the rug. And then you have this conversation with her after the fact of how she's in the town to protect May from things like this. So my theory is that Aunt Copcat is actually part of the
Aunt's
cult.
Copcat.
Yeah,
Whoa.
I had the same thought. And I think the internet kind of had the same thought after I looked it up a bit. That because you don't see in that epilogue afterwards, you don't see the aunt at all, even though she kind of played like a recurring role of like, but. She just
Are you
popped
sure
in.
you don't see
no,
the aunt? You
I
do see
bumped
her.
into her
I
at the
don't
end.
think you bump into her at the very
I
end
did.
afterwards. I'm almost positive you don't.
Pretty sure I
think
did.
I saw her.
Yeah,
Really?
I'm pretty sure I
Maybe.
did.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure I did. I'm pretty sure she was hanging outside your house.
That was like the day before, I think. Either way.
Anyway, I was a little weirded out by the relationship between May and her aunt,
Yeah.
Mall Cop, because I was like, this is needlessly hostile and aggressive.
Right.
And typically, I would expect this type of relationship with a parent,
Right.
who's supposed to be the one that's like the authoritarian rule maker,
Right.
keeping a teen in line, but not the cool uncle or aunt, which usually have a much better relationship with because they're more relatable and often a bit younger and all of that. But then I realized at the end of the day, May enjoys crimes and is very anti-authority. And her aunt, the cop, the one-town cop,
Right.
is like the perfect symbol of that. So, of course, she's going to have a difficult relationship. So getting back to it, once you see this teen get abducted, you chase after this hooded figure to the far left of town, and somehow this character who's abducted this girl is able to either hop over this fence or phase through it, and May believes it's a ghost, and very quickly May's aunt shows up and says, "Hey, May, you have to get home. This is too dangerous for you to be out here." And so May is forced to give up on it, and May's aunt brings her home. And that starts the precipitous acceleration of the story from being about a sleepy small town, Possum Springs, that the teens want to nuke, to a Lovecraftian
mystery.
horror.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she May quickly starts like devolving a bit. Like she's having really bad dreams. You have all these dream sequences where she's kind of either beating up cars or looking for musicians to play notes, and then there's giant animals that are kind of eating at her, and then you meet God, and there's like a whole bunch of little
You meet God,
which is legit a giant
that
cat.
was so frustrating
Yeah.
to me because May keeps calling that creature God,
Right.
even though the creature explicitly says, "I don't
God."
know what God is, but I am not the God you
Right.
speak of."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Yeah, and I met God." I'm like,
No, you didn't.
Like, what? What? You just straight up said they're not God.
Yeah.
Why would you? Anyway.
I thought you were talking about how frustrating the sequences actually were.
Oh, I mean, they were not my favorite.
I thought the dream sequences started out really strong, especially with that very first one where she goes up and she destroys the statue that's like from I think she says it's the same statue that she has at school.
Right.
And then they kind of just devolve into these like weird
Find the musician thing.
Yeah. And they didn't have, I know like there is a bit of an explanation as to what like the musicians that you have to search throughout the level for. But I thought that there was going to be a closer tie between the experiences that you had during the day and the dream sequences.
Yeah, that
They
would make
do.
sense.
They just don't line up linearly.
Oh.
But there's 2 or 3 in the middle where all you have to do is track down the musicians and like there's no relation to what you're doing.
Right.
Like some of them do and some of them don't, right?
I think they all relate to locations that you will be at in the day. I don't think they linearly relate. I think some of them are much forward in the future and some of them further back.
Okay.
But, like one example being the rooftops that you only find out later. I think it's the next two day periods where you actually chase B through and over the rooftops to find her. So I think part of it is also these locations only make sense if you choose the right story that day to go down.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So if you end up choosing a B path instead of a Gregg path, and you see B's location instead of A's, the nighttime location that you see won't make as much sense.
Interesting.
Which
The music was super cool, though.
Yes, it was.
I liked the music at every point in this game. I played this game while listening to podcasts, but I loved hearing the music.
Yeah.
I did not love playing their version of Rock Band,
Oh my gosh.
but I did love listening to the music.
Oh my
it was
gosh.
perfect though in that like it was super frustrating. But like May keeps saying like I don't practice bass, I don't know this song, and it was frustrating, but like it fit.
Like, so the very beginning of the game where you first get off of the train, you make your way home and everything, you can go into your room and you can practice playing bass, right? And it's your first interaction if you decide to do that, right? Because otherwise your first time would be going to actual band practice, right? So I went to the bass and I tried playing it, and after I'm done, the thing May says is, I literally do not know this song. And I died. I completely died. I literally do not know this song.
Love
like,
it.
what is she doing playing a song in her room that she does not know whatsoever? It's just hilarious. So.
Yeah, we played it on Switch where like the buttons aren't colored.
Right.
Where on the Xbox One where you played it, Mike, and Jess where you played it on PC where I think it was 1, 2, 3, 4. For us, it was
Oh my
so
God.
difficult.
It was so hard. I did terrible every time. I didn't improve. I didn't get any better. It was just like, we're at band practice. We're not going to do anything legit with this band practice. Like,
I felt I was pretty good at the minigame, but I did not like it in that like the arrangement left to right that they had the ABXY buttons did not correspond in my head to how they would be laid out linearly, flat. And as a result, I had to like do this weird transposition in my head between what the diagonal buttons look like and what they looked like flat on a note stream coming down.
yeah.
But you know, I think they did a good job with it.
Oh yeah, it was lots of fun.
I think
but
it was a little too
terrible.
challenging.
If you dig into the extra content on the actual game itself, there's some concept art that shows an earlier kind
Yes,
of
I
layout
did see that.
layout for the band, and it was in a cross form where like the Y would come down, the A would come
I
up
like
if
that.
you're on Xbox One, which to me I'm like, why did you do it the way you did it? But I'm not a game designer. I'm sure there was a reason for it.
I didn't mind the format, actually. I stumbled with it a little bit at first, but I thought it was one of the more fun games to partake in.
On PC, is it 1, 2, 3, 4 left to right?
Yes. Yeah. So, like, I basically had, both of my hand, like, I had my left hand over 1 and 2 and my right hand over 3 and 4. So once you got the hook of it, it was actually quite easy.
Wait, you didn't even use one hand?
No, I used 2 hands. You guys, no. I completely forgot. I played bass guitar in grade school when you had to learn an instrument. So,
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I
Slapping
completely
the bass,
forgot.
man.
So
Oh
I'm
my
like,
gosh.
I know how to do this. Like, this
This is exactly like what I
this
learned.
is exactly like how you played the real bass guitar. So I had a lot of fun with that game.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
You learn something new every day.
So I think this was a long path to getting towards.
Oh yes.
Once you start this search for the cult, you end up. I don't know if do you guys want to go step by step how we find out more
If we want
information
to
on
go
the
to
cult?
library, then
Yeah.
like graveyard, etc.
Yeah.
So start at the library at the microfiche. You basically go to the library with B, and when you go to the library with B, you have to go up to the 3rd floor, and a lot of jokes about like, hey, what's a library? Ha ha ha. Let's go where the old dusty microfiche are. So you go up to the 3rd floor, and that's when you take. It's one of those mini games, and the hands in this game always make me laugh because they just look so like static when you're moving things around, but you're moving this microfiche around to read different articles. You alluded to it earlier about the town, but you're trying to figure out, are there ghosts, right? And there are 3 stories on this large microfiche that you have to like scroll around and find that deal specifically about the ghosts that are tied to the mine. Right? So you start to kind of put that together. You get more information about the town. And from there, that's when you go to an abandoned house, right?
I did. Wait, which one
I
was
went to
that
the
one?
graveyard.
Oh, okay.
You went
yeah.
to the graveyard?
So you have 3 leads coming off
Yes.
of the microfacia. You have the graveyard, the park, and the historical society.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Right. I went to the graveyard.
Yeah, I went to the graveyard first.
I went to the graveyard.
Yeah.
Same. I went to the
Okay.
graveyard and then I went to the park.
So when you go to the graveyard, you're there with B because her mom's in the graveyard.
Yes.
Because one of the elements of B's story is that her mother died senior year, I believe. And the result was, which is why Bee's in her current situation, her dad kind of fell apart, and it was up to Bee to miss out on college and to hold her family, what was left of it, together, and to keep the shop running. And so Bee takes this trip as an excuse to go see her mom. And, there's also just a bunch of sad elements, like Bee's mom is buried in the low ground near where some of the sinkholes are, because they can't afford anything better for her. Right. And as part of this, you walk into the graveyard and you stop at the statue, and you see there's a statue in the back on top of one of these graves that looks exactly like the janitor.
Oh, really? I don't think
it's a bird that looks just like the janitor.
Well, that's creepy.
You mean the character literally named the janitor?
Yes.
Who you
Literally
never
the
get
janitor.
their name.
Yes. Who shows up at very opportune moments. Right?
Are they God? Who knows?
That's,
Oh my gosh.
Glad you're asking the questions. And then as soon as you realize nothing's happening there and Bee's had her moment to talk with her mom, you break through a gate in a cemetery, and you dig open a grave.
You unearth a grave.
And you you unearth the grave of the supposed ghost of Possum Springs. And while you're doing that, you see one of the miners, one of the cult members.
Yeah.
And
that you just think at this point is a ghost.
Exactly.
Right. The ghost that
Yeah.
that kidnapped that girl on the phone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So where do we go from there?
Well, I think I just want to mention first, you have to go through a gate where it's guarded by a bunch of like nasty teens, and they
yes,
they make you tell like the goth teens make you
teens.
tell like a really embarrassing story about yourself.
Yes. Oh my
which
gosh.
was just like mwah, just the writing was so perfect.
Did everyone have the same embarrassing story, or does it change? Because I think it changes, right? Like it can shift around. I think.
I think you have a choice in details
Is it
of the story
choosing
you
or
can
is it
tell.
shifting? I think
here we
need
go.
to.
Well, Jacob, if you change details, does the story change?
It shifts.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh
Travis.
no, mine was terrible. Like she ended up going to, she wanted to kiss this boy at the dance, but then she bit his lip, and then he was bleeding, and then she shoved paper towel in his mouth, so he was choking.
Oh, that's not the story I had at all.
I had a completely different story.
Me
Oh yeah,
too.
so she shoves paper towel in his mouth, so he's choking. So she wants to do the Heimlich maneuver, and then like she's getting a little drunk and sick, so she ends up throwing up. She throws up on him. It's terrible, super embarrassing. And then she keeps going, and they end up leaving. But I think what ends up happening is because the guy left because she ended up throwing up and puking and bleeding everywhere. She ended up getting a ride from someone who took their tractor to the prom, and like she sat on the back of the tractor crying as the cars honked as they drove by. Like the worst, most embarrassing story I can ever imagine. So
Was that May or was that Beast?
that was May.
Oh yeah, I had a completely
really?
different story. Completely different.
Did you have the attractive girl in class, Jess? That story?
No.
What?
No.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Oh my
Go
God,
for
I
it.
can't believe I have to
yours,
tell-
Then I'll tell mine.
3 men this story. So May's embarrassing story is like every girl's nightmare, where she gets her period in her school class, and she
Secondhand embarrassment. I'm seeing it live.
She bleeds on the chair.
Oh gosh.
So she gets up and she bolts, and she watches somebody else go and sit in that same chair, and it's like one of her male coworkers, who then realizes that he's got blood dripping from his butt because he sat in the chair where she had her period. And he goes to the nurse, and the nurse calls his mom.
Oh my gosh.
And he's upset. And then B walks by, and like part of her story is like, I walked by and he knew. And I'm like, oh my God. No, it's like, it was horrifying.
That that does not sound great.
No.
Periods.
Mine was, I think everyone's anyone who's had a crush on someone can relate to. May sees an attractive girl in her class and doesn't know what to say, so stumbles into her one day in the hall and just starts yelling at her, "Hey!" and then does not know what to say, and so turns to run and ends up hitting into a door frame and then bouncing into the garbage.
Oh my gosh.
And
Spaghetti.
getting tied up into some spaghetti, and then the spaghetti gets in her mouth. And
trash spaghetti.
trash spaghetti. Mom spaghetti.
Oh my gosh.
It's on her sweater already. And Jacob, I feel like you had a similar story.
That was my story exactly.
gosh.
All I remember from that whole story, because I had actually forgotten until you said spaghetti, and I was like, trash spaghetti. Door frame, hey. Yeah, we had the same story.
That's
but
really funny.
boy, those are some embarrassing
Yeah,
stories.
it was really
Because Bees
bad.
was such a cop-out, right?
Yeah.
She was just like, I don't know, I said something embarrassing once,
Right.
and then May was like, let me tell you my story.
Right.
Here's
As
my
someone who's
deepest dirt.
riddled with anxiety,
Yeah,
let me
let
tell
me
you
tell
about the
you.
thing that I'll never forget that I
Yeah.
did to myself.
You won't charge me a nickel, so let me tell you right now.
Oh my gosh.
And the teens
Graveyard.
are complete jerks and they don't care and they're like, you can just go ahead anyway. It doesn't
You
matter.
could have passed this whole time. I had no control over you. Wahaha.
Oh, terrible teens. After the graveyard, you go and hang out with Gregg, or you have the option from there? Because all I remember is...
I think you can choose.
Yeah, so I went and hung out with Gregg.
Yeah, me too.
And all you do is you cause mischief. Like, you get really angry in the bathroom, and it was like another one of my favorite parts where you go and get these like really special donuts.
Oh, wait. Nope, I didn't do this.
You get these really special donuts, and while you do it, you like commit a bunch of crimes. Which,
really?
like, in the
Oh my
bathroom,
gosh.
it's this great vignette of like putting paper, like wet paper towel, inside of like a hand dryer. You like fill the toilet like full of toilet paper, like you're stomping down on your feet, and you're like filling it with toilet paper.
Oh my God.
And you're also like scratching with your cat claws the bathroom stall, and just like you can leave whatever design you want in the bathroom stall. And I'm like, this is great. Crimes are great.
Oh my God.
And
Crimes.
and it's her way of just like being
Coping.
terrible and
Yeah.
coping with what's going on.
Yeah.
And it was just like, mwah, it was perfect.
I didn't do that.
I didn't do that either.
I went on a hike with Angus.
What happened there?
Wheezy Angus.
Yeah, Angus has asthma, even though he was on the track and field team in grade school or middle school. And you find these different limestone mines, and I don't know about you, but I always run at full speed.
Yeah.
But with Angus, you kind of have to slow down, or you leave him behind, or he leaves you behind. And you make your way to the top, and I believe that's when you start connecting the stars in the sky. And, you know, he tells you about the different astrological basis, you know, things. And you have kind of a discussion about, you know, metaphysics. Like, you know, do supernatural powers exist? Are there psychics? Do you believe in God? What is your background? And you find out that Angus was abused quite a bit as a kid. And that his parents used to beat him, and his mother used to lock him in the pantry. And that's why he has a deep affinity for cooking. And as part of that, Angus, you know, as soon as you're done that whole segment, he says, "Don't look now, but someone's here." And when you look, when the camera zooms out, you see that one of the miners is just watching.
Oh my gosh.
And it's one of the most unsettling moments I had in the game. And I felt better because Angus was there.
Yeah.
Which, you know, made me feel like I was really relating hard to May. I was really putting myself in her position. But you get into this point where you just start running, and you run away, and you get in the car, and you go back to the apartment. And then I think from there is when it jumps off.
Right.
When everyone starts to believe you, and it becomes chapter 4, right? Which is like the way the game, and it actually kind of almost takes control from you, and like sets you down a very linear path to the end of the game, right? So how do we talk about the end of the game? Because this is essentially like chapter 4, epilogue are kind of one. It's almost like chapter 3 is like a few hours, and then chapter 4 and the epilogue are like 45 minutes. It really comes to a conclusion, and there's a lot that happens in chapter 4 and the epilogue. So you wake up and you're not feeling so great based on what happened the night prior.
Each day you're looking worse and worse.
Yeah.
So after you finish whatever that third choice is, so my third choice was the same with Angus in the park and the constellations, and then you have the weird ghost guy hanging out, and you bolt it. And Angus, out of nowhere, can like now run down the hill, and he's fine. His asthma is gone.
Yeah.
And then you go back to Gregg's, and you have this like little debrief And that's where the ghost hunting kicks off. So then as a group, you go back to the park, and it's this very long, like, you basically just have to walk through. Like, there's not really, like, there's no choice that you have to make. There's no actual gameplay. Like, you just walk through the level until you reach the end where you encounter the hooded group of men.
Right. Who are torturing one of their own, correct?
Right. Yeah. Something about their leg, I think, and then you hear them talking, and they're pretty much just torturing someone, and then someone says May's name, like they recognize
May Borowski.
Yeah, they recognize. I don't think we ever find out who that person is. Who knows?
And Copcat.
It's Aunt Copcat. So yeah, then
It's Germ's family.
So yeah, you end up running, and I'm assuming so the screen kind of like goes to black, and you pretty much get separated, and all of a sudden, like, you wake up, and like I was controlling B, like I wasn't controlling. Like,
in the apartment.
In the apartment,
yes.
like, because it cuts, right? Like,
yes.
I control Greg.
Oh, really? So it probably was whoever you had the most relationship with.
Yeah,
Oh,
I did.
no.
I controlled B.
Greg is my guy.
Yeah, so I ended up. You pretty much just control B, and I'm like, what is happening right now? It's really not clear, like, what happened to May.
And you have that kind of frantic look throughout the apartment to see if you can find May.
Exactly. Like, I'm walking around, and like B's not moving
My
at any
heart
pace
sank.
or anything like that, and I'm like, okay, come on, like, pick up the pace. Like, I want to know what's happening. And you pretty much walk around after you interact with, I think, enough things. Then is there a knock at the door? And no. Yes, I think because then there's a knock at the door, and it's May, but now it gets foggy because I think it really cuts in from like there to like a sleep sequence, and then like you're waking up in the house, and then you left the house, and then you go back to the apartment. Like, it kind of jumps really quickly around, and I got really disoriented about like where May was supposed to be that entire time.
And then it's a church that turns into a hospital at one point as well. Do you remember that part?
Yes, that's right. Yep, in kind of like May's dream sequency kind of things, and I'm like, is she in the hospital? Like, I really
Where
didn't
also
understand.
the janitor shows up.
What's that?
The janitor shows up.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's creepy.
Yeah.
I love the janitor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm using finger quotes. Great for a podcast.
I think what ends up happening there is everyone extremely believes that something's going down.
Right.
And May wakes up after sleeping on the couch for a while and says, hey, now that everyone's asleep, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to not be a burden on them. I'm not going to drag my friends into this. And May heads out in a night in the woods and stumbles across one of the miners, and out of nowhere, a bolt from a crossbow flies and pegs him right in the head. And you hear Gregg and B and Angus roll up behind you, and you feel like, oh my god, thank you, the cavalry's here. This was a something that a young stupid teenager 20-year-old would do.
What, have a crossbow?
No, go off and try and fight all by themselves, clearly. But what ends up happening is the miner Ein, who's hit with this arrow, runs back deep into the mine, and you and your crew chase him down, and you go further and further, deeper down into the mine, until you hear a voice that says, take one more step further and you'll die. And that's when we get the revelations that it's not just one ghost, in air quotes. It is this ancient order that has been feeding an ancient evil at the bottom of the mine with beggars and homeless people and vagrants who would not be missed.
The scum of society, essentially.
Yeah. And what they find is that when they feed this evil ancient being at the bottom of this mine, life in Possum Springs gets better, and it provides a future for them. And I don't want to dive into any of the like metaphor there of what they're going for, but it is a fantastic Faustian bargain that the residents of this town or this community are involved with. And I don't know about you guys, but I immediately was transported to the members of city council that you see coming up with these harebrained schemes to try and make Possum Springs more attractive and more business friendly, and not wanting any of these homeless people there, which to me like my rationale was they definitely don't want them to be comfortable and in this church, because then they become part of the community, and then it's harder to just drop them in the bottom of this mine shaft.
Oh.
But it was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What did you guys think of the bargain?
Of the
bargain that they were trying to get.
Oh
you
yeah,
and the
to try to
group
get them to pretty much continue what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of like, yeah, no, there's no way. Like I was pretty like dismissive of it immediately. But then again, I wasn't surprised that May was kind of like, wait, let me hear what they have to say, But I was super dismissive of it immediately, and I was like, okay, well, this like, where is this going, right? And I was surprised that they just kind of let you go. They're just like, yeah. No, because we know who you are. Like, it was pretty much like a threat that, like, we know who you are. You don't know who we are. So, like, if you tell anyone, like, good luck.
Yeah.
So.
You don't know who to tell.
Right.
Who it's safe to tell and
exactly.
who it isn't.
Not Aunt Malcop.
To be honest, the ending completely floored me. Like, if I were in any of those, like, animal shoes, I would have been flying for the other direction.
Yeah, being face to face, at least with the concept of a Lovecraftian horror, like this ancient god that's just happens to be at the hole at the center of the town mine, that would also make me just run, or also just be paralyzed with fear.
Yeah.
Which is also common in Lovecraftian horror.
I just wanted to know, like, what is in the pit,
right?
It's alluded to throughout that it's the dark goat, which don't quote me, because it's been a while since I've read Lovecraft, but there is a dark goat in Lovecraftian horror that is like a cult-like figure. It's one of the old gods, I think. And is, in the same way that many of the old gods in, Lovecraft's universe are pure evil, or purely uncaring. You expect that this one would be the same.
But I mean, like, literally at the bottom of the pit is just a bunch of bodies.
I was just thinking of the bones. Like, the sick side of me was thinking of, like, all the children and teenagers that have been eaten over the years. And go ahead.
What were your reactions when you start trying to escape and you're trudging through the water and you fall and you end up having the conversation with that ancient one, the ancient?
I thought it was a hallucination the whole time. Yeah, I was like,
that it was just gases from the mine that were leaking.
100%.
You're very, like very Angus.
Like the canary in me was like screaming out loud and being like, "There's gases! There's gases!"
You had a very Angus take on it.
I did, and very much like, "Hey, this is a hallucination. Like your mental health issues are coming to a head here," because I think it's alluded to that you have a dissociative disorder. One of the big things that's discussed is with B, you talk about how there's an incident that's alluded to throughout the whole game, and the incident is at a baseball game when you were younger. You started seeing people as shapes, and you just completely disassociate with the outside world.
Oh, I never pieced that together as mental illness. I thought it was actually like a demon thing.
No, she legit just stopped associating people to. They just became shapes, and she stopped. So that's why she wanted to punch this kid. She just wanted to it was just a shape, right?
And all she saw is she wanted to see a different shape, so she just started seeing red because she literally beat the hell out of this kid. And in the town, because it's so small, everyone knows about it. And you finally find out what it's about.
I did not think about disassociation in like a psychological context.
Right. That's where I didn't go spiritual at all, or I didn't go like Lovecraftian. I went like complete mental health. Like, this was the crisis. This is it coming to a head, and she's truly dealing with disassociation through like her inner voice.
Right. So I totally bought the paranormal elements of the world.
Nice.
Because all of her other friends also believed it, and because there was no plausible explanation for a guy who was able to phase through a fence.
Yeah, I don't know if they don't really explain that either. They just run with it.
I mean, they do explain that he was able to gain special powers as a result.
But are they powers, or is it just again a hallucination?
I don't know about you, but I can't hallucinate myself through a fence.
But you can hallucinate others through a fence. You can see things, right? I just could they have gone over the fence? Like,
but I think the baseline assumption, if May and her friends are experiencing some type of hallucination because of a gas leak, that these miners who are throwing people into a pit in the middle of the mine are also experiencing it. So I can't imagine that they all have this hallucination and it somehow allows them to phase through a fence or solid objects.
Enough leeway in the writing to be able to infer a bunch of these different things. Like it could be this, it could be that, it could be this, right?
Yeah.
Also,
and see,
with supernatural powers, how do you account for the QuickTime event where the guy appears in the elevator shaft, grabs onto your foot, and just materializes and dematerializes? Years
and years of being in a cult. Practice.
Fair.
I didn't connect the dots at all with May's mental health. Like, I actually circled back and I just assumed that, like, because she was from Possum Springs and this is like the history of her town and she's been around it her whole life, that it was all connected to whatever it is was controlling, like, you know, the cult and the what was it called? The dark goat?
Yeah, I don't think I even knew.
I mean, they're I don't think they name the cult, but there are definitely allusions throughout to a dark goat as being the evil spirit.
Because throughout the dreams, you see a bird, you see fish, you see.
There was one where I
there's
thought
a thing
it was
in your
giant
notebook.
bee coming to eat you, like bee as in Beatrice. Like I thought it was a crocodile and it comes straight down and it eats you. I thought it was Beatrice, but I'm assuming.
And was that the day after you have the fight with Beatrice?
It might have been.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And to me, like, the one thing I want to, and this is kind of all that I have in relation to my position, is Dr. Hank, who's a terrible doctor, dentist, whatever, has people in town that experience mental health issues journal, right? And that's one thing that you always carry around with you is this journal. And as you experience certain things in the world, you actually draw whatever happened to you, and some of the drawings are very comical and excellent.
Yes.
As the game went on, your drawings got darker and darker, and like imagine that like you're using a pencil, and instead of like drawing fine lines with a pencil, you're actually like using the side of the pencil to draw like darkness and shadows.
Yeah, there was just like big black circles.
So I'm like her drawings are getting darker, her mental state is getting worse, she's depersonalizing as time
really
goes
good.
on.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Everyone keeps telling her that she looks bad. Like, you need to get sleep. Like, they keep like she's physically like feeling it too.
Yeah.
Also, I don't think we should judge on like the doctor in the town that much because like I think it's like worth, you know, being a country doctor or a doctor in a small town is a difficult and thankless task.
He doesn't have the resources to maybe be able to deal with all that kind of stuff.
And he'll never be able to service every need of a residence. Anyways,
right.
I don't know why I'm coming to the defense of this imaginary doctor, but I just, wanted to say, let's cut him some slack. He's doing his best.
Yeah, I want to give credit to Chloe Spencer at Kotaku, who kind of went really deep on the depression topic in relation to Night in the Woods, and that's where a lot of this came from. So I don't want to steal credit. She wrote a great article related to that.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. So, what ends up happening is at some point you fall into a pit and you have this discussion with this ancient evil or this ancient god. And May has this revelation, I guess, where she says, I want it to hurt. I don't care if I die, but I want it to hurt. I want to feel something, because feeling something will mean that this is real and it was worthwhile and it mattered. And I think the revelation that May comes to is that, maybe when we're faced with an existential crisis and the infinite uncaring of the universe, maybe, the answer for her isn't God, but the answer for her is the relationships that she has with the people around her.
Yep.
And by finding meaning in that, that's enough meaning for her to continue on with her life. And I think the story of the game is a beautiful journey that, helps explain those relationships and show where that value comes from and helps her wrestle with it.
So I guess from there, it's just an epilogue that kind of goes on and says, after the mine collapse, after you're saved by...
Oh, you have this insane QuickTime event.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of a trolley problem. Mm-hmm. Do you fight this person? who's trying to drag you down, or do you not? And what I find out is no matter what you do, the same outcome happens.
Oh yeah, no, I totally kicked them.
Me too.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wait, what happens
going
if you
down
don't
that
kick
hole.
them?
It's the exact same thing happens. But choosing not to choose is still a choice, I think is what they're trying to get to.
Yeah, totally.
And so the next day is kind of, a brand new world.
Yep.
Even though so much of the town is the same. And you walk through it with your eyes peeled to see if anyone
missing.
if
yes,
anyone's
I know.
missing.
That's what I was looking
And
for.
I noticed no one that was
I
missing.
couldn't tell. No, not at all.
So for me, it leads more credence to the theory that it's, Germ's family who are outside of town and not one of the town members themselves.
Right.
And then instead of dealing with all of the issues that happen, and trying to come up with some cohesive postmortem.
Yeah, there's just like, hey, we're gonna pretend.
Let's just
pretend.
Let's just keep moving. Yeah. Let's just keep going, and let's just pretend today is a normal day, and we will deal with this insanity that we just dealt with.
Yep.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right now, let's eat pizza and play music.
I was convinced there was going to be one final band practice thing, and so I was sitting there ready for it. I was like, there's going to be one more band practice where I'm going to do terrible, do absolutely terrible. And then the game just ended. And then I was like, oh, I'm a little disappointed I didn't get to suck at doing a bass.
But that credit sequence was so great.
Yeah.
That credit sequence is so great. And also, so many great names in there that I didn't realize were special consultants and special shout outs, like friend of the show, Carla Zamonja. Jake Rodkin, a bunch of the Idle Thumbs guys, Nick Sutner,
Rami Ismail,
so many people.
That's crazy.
It was amazing, and it's not surprising that this game turned out as fantastic as it did with input from all of those people. But I thought it was a fantastic game.
Yeah. I loved it. It was great. I had a great time with it. It's only about 10 hours, so it's pretty quick. I mean, that's 10 hours me doing everything, right? Yeah, like I did as much as I possibly could,
I think I clocked 15 to 20.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Because I chased down almost every side quest that I could find.
Yeah, I want to say last time I looked, it was around like 10-ish. I mean, it's probably a little bit more than that. The Switch isn't really specific about like how long your game time is, so... but yeah, no, I loved it. Great game. Would recommend.
Any final thoughts, Jess?
I loved the game right up until the end. Like the supernatural, sacrificial economic monster thing, like didn't really do it for me. I was really expecting something else, and it kind of felt like, to me, it just felt like an easy way of wrapping everything together. Not an easy way, because it wasn't exactly simple, but it just didn't feel like... I would have never seen that ending coming, and I was let down by the way that everything was wrapped up. But gameplay was great. I loved the mini games. Like the pacing, I think felt a little slow at certain times, but overall, like I had a really good time playing it.
Yeah, this game for me has been sitting on my Switch for about a year, and I wasn't a Kickstarter backer. This game was a Kickstarter back in the day, back in kind of the heyday of Kickstarter. But I've been looking forward to playing it. It's one of the reasons why, like, this type of game is the reason why I want to do this podcast, because this game is something that you get together with friends. You missed it. It's new. It's something you want to talk about. It's something that we spent almost 2 hours kind of diving in, and I feel like the Soma episode that Jessica was on, like some of the other ones, like Journey that we've talked about, these are games that have... You could have spin-off conversations talking about, like, can people actually change as a part of this conversation?
Or do
We're
they
going to
just
have
shift?
a lot more conversations about this game and like the nature of man.
Yeah, you were going to call me and be like, Jacob, you're so wrong, and I have so many things to educate you about, and here's a book. But, like, that's what this game does. This is a video game. I love it. I would recommend it to anybody. Thanks for experiencing this with me.
Absolutely. Very well said.
It's a May. We mentioned one question early in the show. We had another question from the Ludonarrative Podcast. You can check them out. You can find them on Twitter at Ludonarrative FM. Their question is, how far did y'all make it into Demon Tower? I never quite got past the final level, but loved how it fit into the overall game.
How many levels are there?
That's a great question. I only got to the boss of the second level, and I played maybe 5 or 6 times, and I'm not good at video games. So
I got to the boss of the third level and gave up.
Yeah.
I was like, there are better video games to play outside of the video game inside of this video game.
Can you just describe it really quick what Demon Tower is?
It is a roguelike, I think. It's supposed to be like a roguelike. Hack and slash
where
you upgrade by getting, I think it's fire inside vases.
Yeah, it's like little pink fire things.
And you cannot I think you have one life essentially.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Like I think you can get hit and then you kind of turn old or like slow and decrepit. I don't know. And then you're slow and then you keep moving. And then I think I made it to like the third level. The first time I played it, it glitched on me. The key room wasn't there. So like the room to find the key to move to the next floor didn't happen, so I had to like look it up to see what happened, and then I ended up playing it again. I think I played it like you, Jacob, like a few more times, and then I just kind of left it. So
there were 9 levels total.
Wow. Yeah. No, not getting through it.
Jess, did you play it at all?
I only made it to level 3. I think I died very quickly, and I was just like, nope, I've got other things to do.
Absolutely. I'm in that same camp. Also, I love the computer interface and the MSN chat and all of that stuff. But we don't have time to get into it. We will talk about this some other time. Jacob, where can the people find you at?
They can find me on the internet at Jacob McCourt on every major social media platform. But you know where else they can find me, Michael? I want to digress.
Where else can they find you?
There's this
Another
thing,
hot deals? Another hot discussion?
Yeah, Discord. That's a thing, right?
That's a thing? Where can people find the Discord?
So if you go to leftbehindgame.club, there's this big button on the front of our website where you can find the link to our Discord server. There are some excellent folks, some excellent deals, some excellent news. It's really just excellent.
Unlike Possum Springs, where people are disappearing every day, we have new people showing up every day to the Discord server.
Nice.
We promise we will not push you into our ancient evil pit to make our world better. Mm-hmm. We welcome one and all.
Mo is the only person that goes in that pit. And he comes out occasionally.
Mo is the ancient evil at the bottom of the pit.
Let's just not tell him about this. He won't read anything if we post in the show notes.
Travis, where can the people find you at?
On Twitter at Travis Colenutt.
Fantastic. And Jess, where can the people find you at?
You can find me lurking on Discord at Fantauzzo.
Fantastic. Everyone shoot over your hot theories about whether this was a coming-of-age story or not. I'm sure we will pick up the discussion there. You can find me at Ruffolo M on most social places online or MikeRuffolo.com. And that, my friends, is one less game left behind.